And here we are again with the Jew function. Seth, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. It is Christmas morning. I heard that there's Christmas trees up all over Israel this year. So
It is. There are. Yeah, we're edging closer to the glory days of the temple. When the Greeks came in and helped us, put some sense into us and taught us about culture. So we're back into that, and we're bringing some good old-fashioned culture. Christmas trees, because there's so many Christmas trees going around here. So one has the urge to just chop one down and bring it into his living room.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm happy and sad both at the same time. Actually,
I think we talk about it a lot, but there's always a great deal of darkness before the light. You have to reveal all the disease before you can cure it, all that stuff. And I think it's a good sign that people have really lost all concept of what it means to be Jewish, to be a Jew. Like for some people, it's a name only, right? It's like, it's written in my ID card. But for them, they think it's something they could just eschew, right? Eschew off and not deal with, and it's it's done. It served its purpose. Now we can be citizens of the world, as a lot of people like to do. Except we know the sad truth that it never worked out.
But it would be nice. It would be nice to just be a person in the world. But for some reason, there's this extra. It's like an additional gravity. It's like normal gravity, and then there's like Jewish gravity.
Right. And speaking of gravity, there are people, unlike those people, or contrary, or as a counterweight to those people who have completely lost touch with their Jewishness, you have those people who actually feel a stronger pull towards that, which is, again, to me, it's like a sign that there is something there. It just, some people feel it, some people don't. It's not like it's dead and, let's move on. And the sooner we move on, the better. No, it's actually, it's alive, it's kicking, people feel it, people are drawn to it. Some people are even drawn to the physical center of it, which is here in Israel. And they're ready to just leave behind all the comforts of even America and come over like our guest today.
I grew up two things: a proud Jew and a realistic Jew.
We really believe, we feel, we found the answer. We found the reason for anti-Semitism, the solution to anti-Semitism.
Everything in the world is part of a master plan.
As long as the goal is strong enough, it draws the person to it.
Jews are afraid to unify because they feel like it means they all need to become equally religious and all need to become Haredim.
The Greeks tried to kill us, we got Hanukkah. The Persians tried to kill us, we got Purim.
She is the host of the Weekly Squeeze podcast, a singer, songwriter.
Americans that can't find Israel on a map, they don't know anything about it.
Her name is Chanale Fellig-Harrel. Welcome to the Jew Function.
The Jew saw them all, beat them all, and is now what he always was. All things are mortal but the Jew. All other forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality?
I made a career in Jewish music. And not only did I make a career in Jewish music, they call me the OG. I was the first Jewish, white girl in the Orthodox system to come out and say, hey, I'm going to be a professional singer, and I'm going to get up there with my guitar, and I'm going to travel, and I'm going to make music, and I'm going to make money. And I did it. And I've been doing it for 20 years. And then fast forward everything, I decided, you know what? Why put myself into that box of Kol Isha? Now I can use my voice and, speak to the world at large. So that's kind of how my voice has transformed from Chanale the singer to Chanale the podcast host.
And next, Chanale the member of parliament.
No, I'm not going to go that far. We won't go that far. But I will tell you that my music and my message in my podcast is pretty much consistent and cohesive. So whatever I say is in line with my values as a singer.
You moved to Israel, right? You left everything and came here. Why?
Yes, I'm as American pie. Honestly, I always tell people I'm from the South. I'm from South Florida, but still from the South. And who the hell knows? Honestly, it's just like, it wasn't in the plan. I knew as much about Israel as any other Lubavitcher. Like, it was great. We went for Pesach. It was fun. It was vibrant. It was ours. And, But we're in Miami now, and we have a swimming pool, and Israel's there, and we're here. But I have to say that, I mean, the truth is, I could literally talk about just my childhood alone for hours. So you're going to have to pull me back in so we can have this conversation. But the point is that I didn't, I kind of grew up just life was sababa until it wasn't, until Trump and Hillary became, you know, our political best. And I was, you know, sitting in Florida thinking, seriously, like this is what we're at. And on top of it, there were just small suggestions that the future of America was bleak. So I suddenly, you know, started
What did you
to think,
see, by the way, to make you think that?
Tell Seth, because he's
Trump
still there.
and Clinton. That was
Okay.
it. What, do you need to see any more?
Well, no, for the Jews, maybe. You know, was it bleak for Jews? Did you see
I'll
that?
tell you why. Their agendas concerned me. You know, Trump's agenda of being a dog whistler to the white supremacists, and then Hillary Clinton being like, we're just going to let all the Arab countries swarm our borders. Like, why the hell not? Like, all of that was like, this is not good for the Jews. Like, this can't be good for the Jews. So about that time, I also was reaching a part in my life that I had little kids, and I had to decide, like, am I buying my house here? Am I settling here? Am I, you know, is my future here? And then I was like, no, we're going to Israel, and I'm taking my Instagram followers with me. And we packed up, and here I am.
How many of your followers also relocated to Israel? I'm curious.
I don't know, but many of them have either come to Israel or started paying attention to Israel or just loving Israel a little more through their experience, you know, as far as my life goes here and my perspective. So, you know, I'm proud to represent, proud Jew.
Right. And did you actually, I mean, aside from the you know, the concern on the horizon, did you actually experience any anti-Semitism in Florida? I hear Florida is pretty
My
mild.
whole life was living under the shadow of the Holocaust. Like that was
Okay.
my entire childhood. So I didn't need to experience
Because grandma is a
because
survivor or
grandma,
something.
I
yes,
think
because
grandmas, right?
my paternal grandmother was a Holocaust survivor. And when I say survivor, I mean she was in the Warsaw Ghetto, and I watched 3 hours of her testimony to the Shoah Institute, and I know every single line of her experience. And the fact that she survived that emotionally and then went on to have 10 children so she can name each child after somebody that the Nazis killed. That after all that, she had, you know, the deep impact that the Holocaust had on her, losing her family and the things that she saw that no child should ever see, so severely impacted her psyche that you know, it affected all her children, and it affected all her grandchildren too, at least the older ones, like me. So
Right.
I was very aware of her experience.
When you
and what
say
she had lost.
affected, I know a few people who are the children of Holocaust survivors. All of them are actually very interesting people, but I would say that there's a lot of trauma in that. Is that what you mean when you say affected?
You know what? For me, it's anger. It's like when I read about the Holocaust, and I have a lot of, and I have read a lot. I don't watch so much because the images are just too horrifying, too haunting. But when I read about it, I get very angry. I get very angry that this happened to us, and that we're taking this. Can I curse on this podcast? You know, that we're taking this bullshit again. Like, seriously, you know? So for me, it's not trauma. It's just like, I don't want to, like, never again means never again. I don't want this to happen again. And we need to come up with a strategy as the Jewish people, as a nation, to prevent this from going down. We know how this plays itself out. It's played itself out 100 times before. We know what's coming. So we need to, convene and discuss and come up with a plan and put that plan into action so that we don't end up, you know, with Kanye West as president.
Right. Do you have ideas? Do you have ideas why the cycle is repeating?
Yes.
Let's put them on the table.
I just want to make something very clear before we even get into the thick of it. I'm not a intellectual. Let's put it that way. I'm a creative. So I have a different way of processing things. I'm not coming at you with my opinions. I'm coming at you with my ideas, my thoughts, you know, stuff that I've collected from podcasts and books, mostly sourced entire in Yiddishkeit, that have helped me make some understanding of our world. So I'm not presenting it to you like this is what I think, but we can talk about my ideas. Does that make sense?
Yeah. We're also, by the way, we're just concerned citizens, Seth and I. We're not historians. Seth is a musician who runs a company for his day job, and I do branding strategy, and I create some digital content. But we all got very concerned, kind of like
Okay.
you, but just
Okay.
So we started to collect the pieces of evidence around us, basically.
Okay. I'm also concerned. So
Good.
as I was saying, I grew up with the shadow of the Holocaust. Now, obviously it hasn't, I still live like your typical American, teenager to some extent, even though I went to Canada, but that's a whole other story. We're not even going to veer through my music career. That's just going to take all night or all day. But the point is that I grew up two things, a proud Jew and a realistic Jew. I also happened to have grown up in Lubavitch. So I was by the Rebbe. My grandfather on my mother's side, they're all Chassidim of Lubavitch. They, were the last ones out of 770. You had to drag them out because they, were under the table. My grandfather was a tremendous chassid. The only way I could define it that you'll understand perhaps is the concept of tiger blood. Like I have tiger blood. My grandfather would kill Russian KGB in the mikvah and hide their bodies. You know what I mean? Like this guy was legit. So, he was actively part of bringing the Lubavitch Rebbe's mother, Rebbetzin Chana, out of Russia in the early, I suppose, 40s, 30s, smuggling Jews out, making passports. My two great uncles, and this will, give you the picture. My two great uncles were both in Siberian prisons for 20 years.
Wow.
And then they came to Crown Heights as 40-year-old Bachrim, clean shaven. And the Rebbe told them to leave it the way it was. The Rebbe was so loving towards them. And they got married at 40. And those were my great uncles. And I remember them. We're a family. So, I'm very zealous, but I try to, balance my zeal with information to see if I'm figuring it out.
Before we get into anything else, something really stands out, and I just want to take a detour for 1 second. That the kind of Jews that you're describing lived heroic lives, lived lives of bravery, lived lives of meaning, lived life with adversity. And I think that maybe this has something to do. I think a lot of what we're talking about and the problems we see today is because there's no Jewish heroes. For example, there's no bravery. There's no sense of
no spirit. There's no spirit.
No spirit. You're totally filled with this. You call it tiger blood, but but when I'm thinking now of myself, of all the kind of regular Jews I know, and I'm not in a bad way, but Jews who even some people very close to me don't necessarily support Israel, just maybe go to the synagogue once or twice a year, but don't really have any strong feelings. They're very assimilated, but they don't have any hero or any sense of wonder or anything like that in their lives.
Because we don't have a Jewish structure set up properly. We don't have that, hierarchy of, or maybe not hierarchy, but if you really want to go back to ancient Israel, we were divided in tribes, and every tribe had a role that they played.
Mm-hmm.
And
for example, name a few roles, just generally.
I prepared.
Super general. Even if we totally just
hang on,
I prepared
it.
Okay, good.
All right, here we go. Reuven, the first brother. Okay, so he's the oldest. The oldest, in and of itself, has a certain responsibility. We have Shimon, the aggressor. Levi was the cleric. He sang in the Mishkan. We know them for their musicality, and of course the Kohanim. Judah was leadership. Dan, the translation is judgment, right? Now, all of these different tribes had their characteristic, right? And within these characteristics was the innate qualities that they have by virtue of the tribe they were born in. And we don't identify with that anymore, and people don't know their roles. And that's why I think we don't have a plan against anti-Semitism, because nobody knows their roles. And there's so many roles. There's so many different roles that different people take in this fight against anti-Semitism. And I think it's extremely important to have these conversations and come up with a concrete plan that works for different people. The same thing doesn't work for every Jew. I could get up here and speak my mind, but I can't, for example, have an intellectual debate on a college campus like Rudy Rockman can. We all have our roles, and we all have our pockets of the world that we can identify with. Black Jews can deal with the Black issue, and intellectuals could work in journalism like Ben Shapiro and keep arguing and discussing. And then we need to educate. I mean, there's so much. There's so much.
So I want to find this is brilliant actually, and what I'm interested in is, do you feel like there's one common goal to all those different roles? Like they should all be working for someone or something, right? Towards something. What is that in your mind?
The frame. Okay, let's put it this way: bringing the Jewish nation back together. And the only way the Jewish nation can be together is if they all know the roles that they're supposed to play. Every Jew has a role they're supposed to play. And when you all play it, then the nation is in sync. And then the nation is united. Then the nation can anoint a king. And then the king can build a castle and charge taxes, and people can work efficiently together with respect. And then the king, who believes in God, will gather the Jewish people once a year and talk about, read the Torah to them. And then they'll build the Beis HaMikdash. And when they have the temple, they'll serve God. And God will be there, and everything will be perfect. Everything in the world is part of a master plan. And we Jews today don't know about the master plan. We have thrown that away. We're just like, whatever. We're all, floating around here without a plan.
So these uncles of yours, they didn't need to get a memo, and somebody didn't need to charge them with it, right? They had a mission because they were drawn by something in their heart. At the same time, another Jew in Syria was doing the same kind of thing, but in his way. And another Jew, in New York, maybe was doing the same thing, because people like that, they don't need to necessarily get the email or the memo. It's alive in them. And
why is it alive in them?
Okay, so here's the thing. It's alive in them, and it can be alive in that fierceness that's alive in them, can be alive in 1,000 Jews in 1,000 different locations, and they can all be, it's not just a Jewish thing, but say in our story here, and they can all be working towards it, because inside there's some goal in front of them that's so strong that each one kind of finds, right, that they were not like the intellectual ones in that scenario. They were from whichever kind of tribe you're calling it, and they had that role, and they did their thing. And someone else, because you don't need to get the book and study what it is. When that light is in front of you and that goal is in front of you and it's so strong, each one kind of, it just erupts from you.
Yeah, and also we gravitate towards truth because we're Jews, and we're people of the book.
What is that?
The thing is the Torah. The Torah, Hashem, Eretz Yisrael, God.
As soon as you say that, you not alienate, but nobody knows what you're talking about.
Let me tell you something. I'll tell you who I'm talking about. I'm talking about all the Jews, the Haredim and the Chilonim. Everyone in our community has their work cut out for them. Every single community is guilty of not doing their role efficiently in every part, and we're not all going to be the same, and that's fine. And I want to go back. I want to go back for a second, by the way.
Okay.
Because this brings me back to the first issue of the chosen nation, and that's something that I really wanted to address.
Okay.
So just if go ahead, say your piece, but just remind me that I wanted to talk about.
No, I have all the points written down, and also the little forks we took in the road, because you already jumped on like 6 things. But Seth, you wanted to.
So what I'm saying is, if that point is strong enough, right? Like, if we're all fans of Argentina in the World Cup, it doesn't matter if I'm in Argentina or in Newark, New Jersey, or wherever I am. We're all watching the game. We're all thinking about it. We're all telling our boss whatever we need to get out of work. We're all praying and aiming towards the same thing, no matter where we are in the world. No matter what?
Laser focused.
No matter what we have to do. If I have to cut someone off in traffic to get to the game, if I have to tell my boss a story so I can get to the game, to watch the game, whatever we have to do. And so when there is that goal that shines for a person, they're either crafty intellectually or crafty with a knife or crafty with their dollar to get towards the goal. As long as the goal is strong enough, it draws the person to it. So what's happening then now, it seems, is that there's so much crap in front of our hearts, in front of our eyes, that we can't see that goal. That goal is so far from us. God,
but it's also
the
so
Torah,
close
it's
to
so-
us. But it's also so close to us. That's what we say. Kikar v'lacha davar ma'ayit b'ficha u'v'lvavcha la'asaysay. The Torah is supposed to be close to your mouth and to your heart. And when it's not, and when Jews cast it away, they feel disconnected, you know? It's just, you know,
so it is actually here, shining for everyone all the time, but there's so much crap between callousness or whatever it is.
So let's translate it. So let's, so if we had to, again, that's why I'm kind of deliberately, for those who may have forgotten about these ideas in the Torah, because you're right, they're written in plain sight. In fact, we have a whole collection of quotes that say exactly what we need to do. I have prepared here actually, 5 pages of quotes from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Just I have from anyone, but I just prepared from him because I know you.
Right.
It's all there. They all speaks about the need of the people of Israel to unite. Here's one, if I may. When the children of Israel unite to be all of us as one, and not just all of us as one in our imagination, but true unity. Truly, by that we accelerate the true redemption, which is also the complete redemption, after which there is no more exile. Right? So, I mean, it's written clearly.
Right. Unite doesn't mean to all become the same thing. And that's where
No, I didn't say
problem
uniformity.
lies.
I said unity.
Unity equals uniformity
No.
in the eyes of a woke generation.
Oh,
They don't
these guys,
understand the
come on.
difference.
They're confused.
So what you're saying is that we need to unify. But what I'm saying is that Jews are afraid to unify because they feel like it means they all need to become equally religious and all need to become Haredim.
I agree that there are a lot of reasons why they're afraid of unity. By the way, even the religious people don't practice that and study that. They focus on doing all the mitzvahs and all that. People do everything except to work on unity. That is the main issue. That was always the light that we carried. That was the light that was kind of forgotten when we went into exile. And now we're coming back. We have to cast away everything else and focus only on that, because that, as far as our research has shown, both into religious text and Kabbalistic text and historic text and everything else, that's what it's about. Except how do we convince people, or rather, how do we invite people to see the value in that they will embrace it? That's the question.
It's there's an answer, and the answer is as follows. When you want people to unify, you have to give them a purpose to want to be together. So when a nation unifies behind a baseball team, for example, or a basketball team, like we just saw at the World Cup, I think millions of people came out in Brazil to greet one of the players.
Argentina.
Argentina. And it reminded me of Mashiach's times to see
I was
people
amazed by this.
flood the streets.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Right.
Also, overall crime around the world decreased, by like 12% or something.
The world needs.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. What I'm saying is the Jews need to be proud of being Jews. That is what's missing.
What's there to be proud of?
Pride.
What's to be proud of? What does it mean?
We'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
We'll get to that in a second. I'm a Jew and I'm proud and I sing it out loud. That's it. I'm a Jew and I am proud and I sing it out loud. And for every Jewish sucker who thinks by shutting their mouth in a university that they're going to help anti-Semitism, they don't have Jewish pride. You should have half as much pride as your Palestinian brothers to wave your Jewish freak flag in front of everyone's face. So I think that's the first issue.
Okay, so tell us, but hold on. Maybe people don't know what is there to be proud of. And I'm saying it when we all know that on paper. Hold on. And we all know on paper that there's theoretically a lot to be proud of, right? Inventions and Nobel Prize winners.
Cherry tomatoes and the cell phone and the weekend.
There's a whole list
and all that stuff.
But
clearly, we are proud that we are chosen. And now, before you all start panicking about the word chosen, I don't think people understand what it means that the Jews are chosen.
Explain it.
So you want to be proud because you are chosen.
Chosen for?
What is it? Chosen for, not chosen for.
Jew function is really it's a desperate attempt to change something about the rise in anti-Semitism that doesn't seem to go away, and looking at history usually ends with something terrible before we reach relative quiet again. But we don't want to reach something terrible. We want to do it now. So that's why we're doing this podcast. And if you like this, also consider leaving a small contribution on our Patreon channel. Right. We both have day jobs, by the way, so we're not hoping to make money from this. We're hoping to see some change of heart.
Any funds are used to get this out there, to get this to people. We consider this the same way you go out every day to get money to feed your family, put a roof over your head. This is also critically important to our future, to our safety, to a good world, not only for Jews, but for everyone.
Well, this is the Jew Function, and let's get back to our guest.
You know, there's a song by TJF Talks that Avram Fried sings. That's how I know it. And it describes how the Eibishter went, or I don't know if you speak Yiddish, Hebrew, but we'll just go with whatever. Avram Fried's version says that the Eibishter went and he asked the different nations, do you want the Torah? Do you want the Torah? And they said, absolutely not. No, thank you. I mean, specifically, and I prepared this, hang on a second. We know that God offered it to Esav, right?
Right.
And Esav said, no, thank you. I'm a killer. I live by my sword. I can't keep the Torah. And then he offered it to, Yishmael. And Yishmael,
Translate it into modern language so people can. We're with you. We're writing this. We understand what you're talking about, but we need to say it in a way that people can understand what you mean.
Okay. So
you're an artist. Say it in a way that's modern.
Okay. So if you go back to, this is really getting to the Aleph Beis of Judaism, but if you go back to the fundamental beliefs of the Jewish people, it's that God gave us the 10 Commandments on Har Sinai, on Sinai, correct? And
that's the story, correct?
That's not the story, that's the facts. Now, before that, God was still had not chosen the Jewish people. They did not have that covenant on Sinai. And God went to Esav and said, do you want this Torah that I created even before I created the world? And Esav says, no, thank you. This is against the grain of who I am. I can't do this. And then God went to, one second. God went to,
Ishmael, yeah.
No, Lot's descendants.
Okay.
And said, do you want the Torah? And Lot's descendants said, no, we were conceived out of an immoral act between Lot and his daughters. This Torah is not for us. And so on and so forth. And the song, it gets it's a whole thing that God, a story of how God goes to all the nations, and each nation says the Torah is not for us. And then he comes to the Jews, and the Jews say, yes, Na'aseh v'nishma. So God chose the Jews, but the Jews chose God.
Who in their right mind would not want eternal pleasure, eternal connection, eternal love? Why would anyone not want that?
I don't know, because they're Goyim and we're Jews and we're smarter than they are.
No. No. What does it mean, really?
That's a Jewish answer. But we were not the smartest ones before we got the Torah. Meaning, that whole ability to
exactly.
So the question is, maybe, and this is something that we explore a lot. Maybe there's sort of an internal quality to this whole story you described that's much more palatable, and maybe touches much more on kind of the psychological structure and social structure of humanity today, not 2,000 years ago, but right now. Okay. And we're saying the Torah, from the word Horah, is a set of instructions on how to rise above your egoistic nature, your will to receive, as we call it, which is what we all have. So everybody in his right mind doesn't want to leave his ego, because that's what gives them pleasure. They don't know that there's something else above it, beyond it. And so that's why there was a group that was chosen from all the nations, which is what Jews are. They're representatives of all the nations. They were not an ethnic group, a biological group. And they were given sort of a set of instructions of how to do just that, how to unite, even though you want to kill each other, even though you're not the same, you're not uniform, you have differences of opinion, of ideas, of roles, and yet you'll somehow find the power to unite, because I'm teaching you how to, I'm giving you the power. This is nature's plan, as it were. And that's what the Jews got, and that's what the Jews need to share with the world. And we're not doing it. We're not doing it ourselves, and we're not being an example and a leadership to the rest of the world. How's that for an explanation?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we can continue to riff on this because I just finished listening to Rabbi Sachs's audiobook called Not in God's Name. I don't know if you guys know Rabbi Sachs's work, but if you don't, you should get on that.
The British guy, right?
If you call him the British guy, you don't know his work.
I don't know.
So-
No. I claim to not know, but I know
the
them.
chief rabbi of England, right?
He was. He
Yeah, he
passed,
was.
and it was a great loss. So this is his theory. So let me present it to you, and you guys could help me unpack it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So he writes a book. I think it was 10 years ago. It's an audiobook which he reads, by the way, the entire book, which is such a pleasure. And his theory is like this. He says, when religion turns men into murderers, God weeps. And then he goes on to explain how the idea of altruistic evil, which is evil committed for a sacred cause, which is all the murders that are done in the name of religion and in the name of God. You following?
Yeah, I'm not sure why he's called it altruistic. Altruistic seems.
He's calling it altruistic because they do it because they think they're doing something positive. So they're altruistic, and no,
Okay.
no one performs a murder as gleefully as somebody who does it for God.
True.
Okay, so
Except
that
again, it's just that altruism feels like it has to be for the love of someone, not of God, of someone else. So,
I
but
mean,
okay, I'll go with you. We'll
Okay.
talk about it.
I think they self-identify as altruistic evil because what do you mean? The Nazis thought they had a greater good.
True.
There was a greater good.
True, but not. It wasn't altruism for sure. It was the greater good of them, of the world. A lot of people unite, but not for others, but
No,
against.
hold on. It's
someone.
Leo. Just flow with this. The
Yeah,
sake
yeah,
of the
I wanna-
story
yeah,
that a person
Okay,
feels.
okay.
Let's go with
So,
it.
okay, so he goes on to explain that why do we need religion? What's the deal with religion? Because without it, life has no meaning, and for society to survive, they need purpose. We need something to be motivating us, giving us that kind of energy. You know what I mean? So, all of this secularism is also a kind of religion. Wokeness and progressivism, liberalism, they're fanatic. They're as fanatic as any religious, a group is, just a different focus. So he goes on, he basically explains that we need religion, right? But then he gets much, much deeper. And he says that if we go back to the story in the Bible and we read the text of Genesis again, we discover a totally different narrative that all three religions seem to have missed. And he says that, the entire Genesis is based on the structure of sibling rivalries from the beginning. Before Judaism, we have Cain and Abel, and Isaac and Ishmael, and Jacob and Esau, and Joseph and his brothers, and then Leah and Rachel. And all of them had a tension between them
Mm-hmm.
that one is the chosen one, and one is the rejected one. Okay?
Yep.
So again, I'm just, sharing what I understood.
Yeah, we're with you. We're with
So
you.
for instance, on the birth of Yitzchak, right? So Sarah says to Avram, get rid of Hagar and Yishmael. This is not for me. And Avram sends them away. And the Torah depicts how it was hard for Avram. Sarah had to force him to send her away. And the Torah takes you into the story of Hagar sitting under the tree and crying and just your heart goes out to them. Your
Right.
heart does go out to them. And then, by the way, at the end of the story, Yishmael and Yitzchak reconciliate and they bury Avram together. And that story is, the fact of the matter.
Also, Esau
So-
and Jacob reconciliate,
Exactly. So in
and
other
Joseph and his
words,
brothers.
that's right. And Leah and Rachel, they were both mothers of the 12 Shvatim. So in the 12 tribes. So in other words, our sympathies are enlisted not for the chosen, but for the other, the apparently rejected one. That's Rabbi Sachs's idea. And you can see that in all the stories. So what you're seeing is that on the surface, these are stories of God choosing X and rejecting Y. But God's choice is not like that. And this is the point of it. God's love is not like that. To love X doesn't mean he has to hate Y. To choose X doesn't mean he has to reject Y. So he explains that the very theologies of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam have at their roots, and one second, let me just make sure I have this clear. The theologies of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, they've always had violence between them because they didn't interpret the texts the proper way. And if they had, they would understand that God loves each human being equally. Each person in those relationships, God loved equally. And we don't have to live in a constant state of violence. Does that make sense?
Yes, makes a lot of sense. We talk about it a lot. We talk exactly about the fact that everything is presented in reality as a thing and its opposite. In fact, you can't know one thing unless you know its opposite. There's no sweet without bitter. There's no hot without cold, etc., etc. We are just not able to grasp any aspect of reality unless its opposite exists right in front of us. So all those stories are stories of opposites that you have to reconcile. And it's clear. And if it all comes from one source, of course, one is not better than the other or something like that. It's just one. It's like a theater play, right? One plays the hero, one plays the villain. They all have to be in the play. They all have to kind of.
But it's no fun to be born the villain if you want to be the hero. So there's
that's where free choice comes into play. I mean, as long as everybody's kind of operated,
not just free choice. If you're born the son of Ishmael and you read the book and it says God chose my brother and not my dad, it's real clear in the Kabbalistic books anyway that all of this takes place. The entire Torah takes place inside of each person. All of those characters, all of those qualities, the Exodus from Egypt, everything is a person's journey to becoming, to dvekut with the Creator, to becoming, to attaining Him, to finding, that's a personal process.
I just want to address what you said before, Seth, about what if Ishmael's children feel like they were shortchanged. That's where the role
not
of
just Ishmael's children, 99.9% of
everyone
the world.
else. Yeah. Everyone else. Well, that's when it comes in that story that I told you initially about God offering the Torah to the other nations and them saying point blank.
Oh, so your great grandparents denied it. So now for eternity.
No. Hang on a second. First of all,
by the way, we're on your side. We're just playing these roles just in order to kind of get to the.
I appreciate that. All right, my tiger blood came out.
No, good. We want to push. We want to squeeze the juice out of this olive here. So we want.
It says the weekly squeeze. That's what we're doing here.
I can handle a squeeze. The responsibility of being Jewish, okay, is something that everyone knows. So
whoa.
Let's talk about the three religions. Okay, let's talk about the three basic religions: Islam, Judaism, Christianity. Islam and the Arabs and the Christians know that the Jews are at the center of it, and that Christianity is an offspring of Judaism, and Islam is just an idea that this Arab guy got when it was too hot in the desert, and he had a vision, and now we have Islam.
I'm sure everybody's happy to hear that.
Anyways, the point is the three major religions know their role. Buddhists are not even interested in this. They checked out of the party a long time ago. Right. So we have this concept that, we don't know our roles. Everyone knows the roles of the Jewish people amongst the major religions of the world. And the role of the Jewish people amongst the major religions of the world is a lot of things. We have to be pretty damn perfect. We really do. We have to be role models in every single way. There is no department in culture or society that Jews are allowed to fail at, because the Torah addresses all of it, and the Torah gives instructions for all of it. And Jews, and every single Jew has the potential to be a good Jew. And if you're not a good Jew, then you're dropping the ball. So to say that, we're not, it's not fair to say that about Yishmael. I promise you, the Muslims don't want Judaism. They know Judaism means that they can't kill, and they can't slaughter, and they can't have a bunch of wives, and they can't blow themselves up, and whatever stupidities they teach their kids. Their whole religion is based on violence. They don't want a religion of peace. So, that whole argument.
I know some Muslims that will object to that, but go ahead. I mean, that's fine.
All right. Anyways, the point of the matter is that the concept that, we're embarrassed to be Jews, because if we're Jews, then we're the oppressors. And if we're the oppressors, and the woke people are going to start hating us because we're the ones that are, we have white privilege. Who the hell knows? I mean, this never ends, that whole conversation.
Wait, so this is a good time to interject the thing we asked at the very beginning, which we never actually answered. Why are the cycles? If everybody knows their role and what's happening, why are they cycles of Jewish, Jew violence, anti-Semitism, anti-Judaism, whatever you want to call it? Why is this happening?
Listen,
it seems like something that people would get and everybody would know what their role is and would just do it and be done with it. And yet it's not. It's and not only that, the last cycle was so brutal, only 70, 80 years ago, and we're on the verge of another equally brutal cycle. And in fact, if you look at the cycles, the time span between cycles is getting shorter and shorter. But the expulsion from Spain, and then the Holocaust was 400 years, and now we're 100 years to literally another Holocaust almost.
It gets harder and harder.
So what's going on? What's
I'll tell you what's going on. What I think is going on. Again, this is just my perspective and what I, how I live my Judaism. At the end of the day, you said before that we need the comparisons to know the extremes. Like when I think, why did we have a Holocaust, or why did God create the Holocaust? The only answer I could think, or the only answer I could deal with, is that when we see how bad things on earth can be, we know how good God could be, or God is, because everything is a reflection. So when you see such evil enacted by human beings on earth in our lifetime, the only thing that good could come out of it is if we recognize that on the flip side, or at the same time, God is the greatest thing we could possibly comprehend. And the problem is that the reason we're in this cycle is because we tend to forget it. And, God wants our attention, and we just keep running in circles and getting distracted and being busy with our, physical world and losing direction.
We're really good when 6 countries or however many countries surround us. We're really good at uniting and fighting back.
Exactly.
When they come to get us, we're usually pretty good at being, clever and brave and figuring out.
Yeah, because listen, God gave us the Torah. The Jews are described as a stubborn nation. A stiff-necked nation.
Stiff-necked, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, God gave us the Torah to keep us in check. And when we don't do it, we just become a bunch of, lemachos that get beat up on the corner of Utica and Albany and Brooklyn.
Right. Basically, when we don't do our job, we get beat up in Brooklyn, is what she said. So, yeah. So
I can't tell if this guy's serious, if he hates me, if he thinks I'm crazy.
No, but, I'm so with you. We want to run across the finish line. What I'm trying to do is take your tiger blood and push it through the eye of a needle, so that we can arrive, so that people can hear what we're trying to say. Okay. Because I think that
I'll say it even more. I'll say it even more, just to be kind of, I feel like, on my screen, you're on the left, Seth, and you're on the right. So I'm kind of like in the middle. I'll say it even more. For our money, we really believe, we feel we found the answer. We found the reason for anti-Semitism, the solution to anti-Semitism. The history shows it, the text shows, everything supports our idea, which is unity. Forget everything else. Forget all the other roles. Jews have to show each other that we care about our unity, like a family, like long lost relatives.
And
more
say
than
that we're 12
thing.
tribes, even with all the different qualities.
Yeah, with everything. We have to show that we can do it. That even though the ego is so big these days, everybody just wants to be, wrapped up in themselves and their own weird identity that they come up with, whatever that is. It's all symptoms of that extreme egoism. And above that, Jews need to show that we can unite above that, and then bring those ideas to the rest of the world. That's what it's all revolving around. That's what all the quotes of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, of all the Kabbalists, they all speak about that. So for us, we've already figured it out. We want to know how to do it. We want to invite people here to talk about how can we unite those stiff-necked Jews. That's the question that we're trying to do.
For sure, we can do it when they come to kick our ass.
That's the thing. We can't. I'm kind of like losing a little
Why
hope.
we have to wait for that? Also, why we
That's
have
the
to wait for
point.
that?
That's the point. Because no matter what,
That's where pro-Semitism comes in.
Okay.
pro-Semitism.
Yeah, you said that word. Leo, you said pro-Semitism. I never heard it before you said it.
Yeah, I said it at some point. Yeah, I know, or in our call. Yeah, not today. Yeah.
Yeah. So you that gave me some food for thought. And can I just tell a joke that I prepared because
Please, lighten up
how
the air
often do you
here.
get to make an anti-Semitic joke?
I don't think anyone else is doing what we're doing, and yeah, and that's exactly it. Nobody can comprehend what we're talking about. Who would even say that anti-Semites have anything valuable to say without saying we're anti-Semitic or we're self-hating Jews? But there's something that everybody's missing in this whole picture, and the reason why the solution is so close is because we're not waiting for anyone else to change. We're not waiting for the laws to be enacted. We're not waiting for a new politician to get elected. The answer is way closer than everybody thinks.
Like us, hit the bell thing on the YouTube so you can get a notification when the new episode is up. Well, this is the Jew function, and let's get back to our guest.
Okay, so the joke about a Jew and a Chinese guy are sitting together drinking in a bar, and after a few drinks, the Jew shoves the Chinese man and knocks him off the bar stool. And the Chinese man says, "What was that for?" And he goes, "Well, that was for Pearl Harbor." And the Jew says, and he says, "Pearl Harbor? That was Japanese, not Chinese." And the Jew says, Chinese, what's the difference?" A few drinks later, the Chinese man shoves the Jew, knocks him off the bar stool, and the Jew says, "What was that for?" And the Chinese man says, "Well, that was for the Titanic." And he says, "The Titanic? The Titanic was hit by an iceberg." He goes, "Iceberg, Goldberg, what's the difference?" So the point of the joke is it just shows the absurdity of anti-Semitism.
True.
It makes no sense. And that's a whole conversation in and of itself.
No, it's irrational. We already covered that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's
Done.
two issues here, two things here. First of all, the Jews have to get their act together. And second of all, the Goyim are a bunch of assholes. I'm sorry, but they are.
So this is where we're going to push back, because we actually spoke to a few Goyim and a few that actually identify as anti-Semites and other denominations, and a lot of them have very specific complaints about Jews. In fact, in our podcast, some of the episodes we cover that, and the demands that they put before the Jews are, "Hey guys, get your shit together and start uniting and leading the world." Words of Henry Ford, a big anti-Semite, words of Vasily Shulgin. And if you want to go even more crazy, and I don't know if we're ready for that crazy because, your grandma is a Holocaust survivor. I don't want to really kind of steer that kind of emotion. But when people talk about Jews and their roles in different points in history, they lament the fact that they end up not doing what they should be doing, but actually taking sides in the name of pseudo human right? Like the woke, being the woke in that given society, and woke usually means it's our way or the highway, right? It's not some inclusive, love your friend as yourself, as Jews should promote. And that's, you've seen that in history. That's what people respond to. Even in Germany, people were responding in big part to what's happened in Russia 20 years earlier. And not to mention the disunity between the Jews back then. So I'm saying, Jesus, why can't we just read writing on the wall?
Don't take the name in vain.
Well, I said Jesus, not Moses. So right. my point is, I'm not justifying violence. I'm looking at the system as a scientist who says, if X doesn't happen, why, if when X goes to 0, Y will grow to infinity, like an equation, right? One goes down, one has to go up, right? Like two forces. So if Jews, don't do their role, the anti-Semite, the nations is just going to, apply pressure. Jews have to kind of bring that.
I love that. So true. I love that. I never thought of it that way. Love it.
So that's really what we're saying. Again,
we're in this together. We are in this together.
The Hanukkah story was a civil war at its root, right?
Between Jews who stuck to the ideal of unity and Jews who moved away from the ideal of unity.
Became Hellenized. I didn't know that. I didn't know all these things. Growing up, I thought the Greeks tried to kill us, we got Hanukkah. The Persians tried to kill us, we got Purim. These ones, but right at the beginning of the Purim story, it's like there's a people who. Well, anyway, let's just stick with Hanukkah because that's where we are right now.
No, she wants to bring Purim. I know.
So let's get to it a minute. But what?
No. We don't. We're good. Let's talk about Hanukkah. It's Hanukkah now.
The point that I didn't know growing up, I don't think most people know, is that preceding each almost annihilation, near annihilation, we were fighting with each other. There was infighting amongst us.
I don't know. I don't know.
Name one. Name one instance. No, name one instance.
What do you mean? In Persia, before the time, the Haman instigated
Haman
the annihilation of the Jews.
What does he say at the beginning? There's one nation.
They were dispersed.
Dispersed. Thank you. Not united. What did Esther do? Said,
I know,
unite around me.
But they weren't dispersed because they were at odds with each other.
Okay, look, you can say, I'm not saying every description goes into the...
There was nowhere for them to be. The Jews didn't have Israel. They were subjects of Ahasuerus.
True, but and this is where the internality of these stories come into play. Exactly like we talked in the beginning. When you think about dispersed in heart, not at physical locations, they were dispersed from the idea of unity. They were not practicing this ideal of the one, right? And
we're getting to this thing that Jew is ichud, is one. He is on that day, he will be one and his name will be one. It doesn't mean that everyone's going to be exactly the same, because
living in the
otherwise
same place.
There would be no reason for creation. Instead, you have women, you got men, you got all these different creatures, you got all these different colors, all these different shapes. That's what he made. That's what he made. He made a complete, and not only that,
I would say God is the God of diversity. I mean, look around the world.
Yeah, right. And as it develops, we become more and more different. But what we have, Leo and I have landed on in these couple of years of doing this, is that every time the anti-Semitism got out of control in history was when we were at odds with each other. And
or even
100%, 100%,
even as much as even as much as moved out of, or married, quote unquote, out of the ideal of unity. That's what real assimilation means. Not that I marry a shiksa, that I left the ideal of unity, of which the external mitzvot are simply an external expression. That's all. So that's really what it comes
nations
down to.
So on the one hand, in day-to-day life, if someone comes and tries to slash you on the corner of Utica, or someone, puts a swastika on the sign of your synagogue, so arrest them, do the normal things. But the solution, we're not pointing, I don't think that we can point to anyone else and say, they're at fault. We have to look at ourselves. And that
I know, but hang on. But I think you're letting too many people off the hook here, because I think anti-Semitism is definitely not something we should shrug off as like the result of our behavior. This is unacceptable. And this is, as far as the nations of the world goes, what goes on from everywhere from the UN to college campuses, it's unacceptable.
We agree.
The kind of anti-Semitism that we're facing
100%.
100%.
100%. There's two ways to deal. One way, the kid is you're in a restaurant and the kid's screaming, and so you end up just giving them like a soda or the phone or something just to calm down. Now, after that, we have to go home and we have to deal with the behavior. But right now, in the moment, we just need to, arrest.
Even more than that, I'm sorry, Seth. I know you're giving the practical solution. My point is, even forget that. Historically, is there something that we can actually do externally in this corporeal world that 0.2% of humanity can actually do against all of the entire world? No. No one can convince me that we can PR our way out of it, or get more bombs, or be proud.
Horrible PR for such smart people.
Yeah.
I think we can pull it off. I disagree. I think we can pull it off.
So let's talk about that point.
I think after COVID, I think we learned that stuff travels quickly, and that if COVID could travel that quickly, so can spirituality and the truth.
Oh, okay. No. So that's something else.
I wish.
So that's what we're trying to push. We are pushing for a spiritual solution, or in layman's terms, a more internal solution that has to do with how we feel and relate to one another.
That's something that woke up in your uncle's hearts will wake up in everyone's hearts without needing the KGB to be coming after us.
Okay.
That's the magic we're looking
for.
How do we do that?
We need more Chabad houses. That's number one.
So that's one. I'm happy that we're talking about solutions, because I think this is the biggest question that is plaguing us. There's definitely we kind of have some of the structure in place, right? Like I said, there are Chabad houses, there are synagogues. What is a synagogue? Beit HaKnesset. It's a place of assembly. That's what it's about. It's what Jews should do.
Yeah.
But we don't do it.
Education's also a very big one. We could discuss
Huge.
just on a separate topic.
Huge.
But as far as American education goes, oh boy, I mean, they have so lost their way. I mean, their priority is just one agenda, and we all know what it is. Religion has gone out the window, and it shows. We're raising a generation of Americans that can't find Israel on a map, and when they do, they don't know anything about it or the Jewish people, and all they know is what they see on Instagram, where it's like apartheid and genocide and oppressors and who knows what, and Bella Hadid, for God's sake.
When
and
you said
Kanye.
when you said earlier that
Seriously.
Jews need to be proud, that's the exact what. So both of our question was, what are they going to be proud of? Because all they're fed is that we're the oppressor, we're the aggressor.
Yes. And it takes an effect. And I wanted to share this actually.
Good.
I've noticed two very strange things happening to me, and I wonder if you've experienced this. I've noticed that Hasidic Jews have started to really irk me, and I'm surrounded by them, and I actually am one. And the constant obsession reading the New York Times article, seeing the photographs, having conversations about the yeshiva system against New York and the way the world perceives Hasidic people.
Yeah.
And then they thought they started COVID, the whole thing, it really cast a negative, a negative something onto my impression of them. So that was the first thing I noticed. And the second thing I noticed is that the star of the Magen David, the flag of Israel, the flag of my country, the flag that I decorate my house to the nines with on Yom Ha'atzmaut, it's starting to feel aggressive to me. Like I'm starting to feel those vibes from it, because I see it presented as this. It's working. It's working on me.
Yeah.
So
Crazy.
this is serious stuff. Now, whatever works for them, we can do on the other side. And the beauty of it is that what we have to sell, okay, is Judaism. And Judaism has everything. It has the 7 Noahide laws. The Lubavitcher Rebbe was very involved in American politics and, in connections with dignitaries and the presidents and the world. I mean, the Rebbe was an example of many amazing things. But, the Rebbe wanted a moment of silence in schools. The Rebbe talked about how it says on the American dollar, "In God we trust," and that, we have to be honest with money, and that, our whole system here is based on God and Judaism, and we have to be a light unto the nation, so on and so forth. But the point is that, I think Jews don't want to face what the solutions are, and they're right in front of us. So educate means try to get, the people in our communities that are askanim or activists to get involved in the politics, so that they can have an influence, so that the public school system should stop shoving the LGBTQ agenda down the kids' throats and start focusing on more important things, because that's not working. We have an entire country of fluid children who don't know if they're girls or boys. So there really has to be a fundamental reform that is pioneered by strong Torah biblical values back into the world.
What if there's a few things that I want to say about it, because on the one hand, I agree that these are things that are screaming to be taken care of. Like, you look around and it is terrifying. It's one of the reasons, by the way, that I left the US. My son, when he turned four and a half, I was like, I can't raise him here. So it's not like it's much better in Israel, but it's still smaller, and you have a bit more control over things. And we are trying to bring change into a lot of those places.
We're still the majority for now.
So that's also a question, But the point is that it feels like there's more control here. You can apply more, more power, more force in certain areas, and actually push towards that positive change. But the question I have is, it still feels like it's taking a one-sided approach to the problem. Meaning, it's like, all right, they're coming here for the education. Let's bring some reform to the education. But wait, it's also happening in the media. Let's try to bring some reform to the media. Well, it's also in social media. Let's bring some reform.
It's everywhere, but that's why
everywhere.
I said it's a multi-fronted fight, and that's why.
But there's only 0.2% of us again. So
doesn't matter. We're also super effective when we do things the right way, and if
True.
every single Jew who believes himself to be a Jew and has any dignity that he is a Jew should have enough pride to actively play a role against anti-Semitism in any way that he can in his world.
Let's say that this
and
is
you
the
can quote me
plan.
on that.
Okay, so let's say we're going to quote you. Let's say we're going to elect you the leader of this, the out front or behind the scenes, however, and that's the plan. Now, here's the thing: in order to implement it, in order to get, you can put a gun to my head and tell me to say I love you, and I could say I love you, but you can't put a gun to my head and say love me. You know what I mean? You can make somebody do an action, but to make somebody do what your uncles did, for example, you have to have a fire in the heart. You can't make someone. So the main question is, and I think that's what Leo's getting, and I think that's the split in the conversation, is you're talking about the action to do. And we're saying once the fire in the heart is ignited, then if you're a PR person, you'll be on fire to do it
Screw
that way.
PR. It travels faster than PR.
What is?
It travels faster than PR.
No, but in just clothed in normal life. If you're a teacher, you're going to do it. You're going to teach your students that way. If you're a doctor, you're going to talk to your patients that way. So in order to implement this, how can we ignite that fire? Like you said, every Jew needs to feel this, right? Has to have this pride. But from where are they going to get it?
Listen, there's two ways to discipline your kids. You could either tell them, if you do a good job, I'm going to give you a candy. I'm going to give you a hug. I'm going to be the happiest mommy. Or you could say, if you don't do it, I'm going to give you a patch. And that's basically how this works.
Hold on. Okay, so for kids, yes, do this, get a candy. I think there's also, when you grow up enough, you need to know what's happening. Meaning, hey, you exist in the system. In this system, we all exist together. We're all interconnected. I'm not interested in simply having Jews be, celebrated or Jews being proud. I'm looking into what's happening, where this is all going. What's the end game?
Well, she already told us we're going to build a temple, and
right,
Messiah is going to come, and we're going to have a party. That's
okay. So now again, I'm translating it to an internal quality. I want the inner quality of this, and the inner quality of this is that nature is pushing us to unite, to connect. In fact, that they did, speaking of all these multiple identities that are, the obsession of the, mostly on the left and all that, they did a study, and that when people talk about themselves and their feelings, it's the same, it activates the same areas in the brain as depression, exactly the same. The more you think of yourself, the more depressed you become. Mm-hmm. And the way out of it is outside towards the other. So even pathologically, psychologically, it's shown this way. And all of our stuff is pointing this way. I want people to understand that there's a reason to get excited, to get up in the morning and to kill a KGB guy, but don't kill KGB guy, kill an EGO in you, kill the ego in you.
I have it planned out.
So let's go.
Oh, you have? Okay, all right.
I have it planned out. Okay, so this all basically goes back to, and then if I give you my plan and it works, you let me know with my kids?
Yes.
All right, fine. So this is the plan. And this all kind of comes back to the idea that the three main religions of this world were not intended to be at each other's throats.
Right.
However, the Jews did accept the Torah, and because of that, they have the responsibility of following in the ways of the Jewish people and of Judaism and of God. Besides the fact, we all know that God, the Jewish people, and the land of Israel are interconnected, all one and the same, and the Torah, of course. So we have the Jewish people who are divided into 12 tribes. Each tribe has their role. They didn't put the Leviim in the battle zone, and they didn't put the Kohen, or they put the Kohen rather, to be a sheikhet in Russia, because that's where he could, let out some of his bloodletting tendencies, or his, his rage. True. Right.
Absolutely.
Right. So I think that if this is bigger than I am, I can't put I could just give my idea, and people who are much more capable than I am can kind of figure out how to make this happen, but it's totally feasible. So the idea is that we have right now a number of pro-Israel, pro-Jewish voices in our midst, and some of them are louder than others, but Rudy Rockman and Easton Black and Ben Shapiro and Noah Tishby and even Michael Rappaport, these are guys who have loud voices, and they are doing great jobs, but if we would empower more Jews to take on different roles, and they should know what those roles are, I think it would just give people A, self-worth, and that everybody feels good about because you have purpose, and B, together we can win the social media fight because we're powerful people. And if we put this on, okay.
I love this, and I want to translate it into also even in action for all these people that you mentioned, because I feel like even on that level we're not united. Meaning, I know I spoke to some of those people personally. I know they're all kind of promoting their sort of brand of Jewish pride and stand up for and explain or represent all that, which again, as Seth said, may be important on the ground on certain occasions. What I'm lacking is that common goal. I would love for more than anything for them to say our place in the world is to lead the world towards unity. That's what we were given the Torah for. That's what is all about, uniting these opposites, these differences, these, the crazies on the left and the crazies on the right. We can bring them together. No one else can. And the world is dying to unite because it's drowning in war. I would love for them to say it. And right now they're not saying it. By the way, Noah Tishby, we went to school together. I tried to get in touch with her, couldn't. She's saying great things about Israel. Nobody cares. Nobody cares that we invented this and we're trying to do that and we're the most moral army. Nobody cares, because if we're not bringing unity, no one freaking cares about anything else. That's what I found on the flesh. Seth found it on the flesh.
Well, unity is both a choice, that we have to make, and it's also a system that you have to put in place.
Correct.
And I think I think if the system was put in place, listen, this doesn't have to be solved tomorrow, but I think if the system was put into place, we could get there.
Can I have you read, you know the book of Zohar, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Rav Yehuda Ashlag, who translated it and wrote the commentary on it. And since you brought Purim, I have a little excerpt, if you don't mind reading it.
Sure, but then remind me to go back and tell you my roles that I have for all the different Jews.
Oh, okay.
My pro-Semitism plan.
Okay, so you want to do, Seth? What do you say? Should do the roles and then read, or because it feels like a good kind of like a departure point. So maybe do the roles and then read.
Okay, so this is my pro-Semitism plan.
There we go.
First of all,
get ready.
We need warriors. That means we need obviously an Israeli army. We also need in our neighborhoods, and this really frustrates me. Why are Hasidic kids getting beat up? They're getting beat up because they're a bunch of laflafim. And if they would know how to fight back or have a group of, let me tell you something, if those kids had one karate class a week, no one would start up with a Hasidic Jew ever again if they thought that all Hasidic Jews were actually black belts.
Not karate, you need Tiger Schulman, Krav Maga,
Krav Maga, whatever it is. They should be working those kids out so they're a bunch of soldiers. You could learn the whole day, but you have to be able to defend yourself. I don't like this business where Jews physically can't defend themselves. Jews need an army. We always had an army. We always will have an army. We need warriors. Those are people that can either physically fight or participate in activism on the ground. And you have to be a warrior to go out into a college campus and debate with these Mishagayim. And we need people that have, are fierce, that can handle that. Then you have the scholars, the Ben Shapiros and the intellects and the think tanks, and all of these people can use their wisdom and their clarity to come up with the intellectual arguments that need to be made in the intellectual community, as far as defending Israel, as far as defending, Zionism and all that stuff. Okay. Hang on. Then we need obviously our businessmen and our merchants. And the money, the Jewish money, and fighting anti-Semitism costs a lot of money. We need guys to, to make a lot of money and to support and fundraise. That's just the bottom line. Then you need leaders to delegate and motivate. And that's just our rabbis and our institutional leaders and teachers and people in that position that's what we do. We inspire each other. We have leaders who gather us in shul and tell us every week, this is what it says in the Torah and you have to do it. And that's what we need. Then we need, of course, a judicial system, because we have laws. We have based in, Jews don't just do whatever they want. We have a system here. So we need judges, to be able to consult with as we put a lot of these things into actions. Then, should I go on?
Yeah. Finish the plan.
All right. We need these sufferers. We need all the neurotics and all the damaged souls, because they are the ones who are going to remind us, if we don't get our acts together, we're going to have another Holocaust. So we need the
they can also be empathetic to all the other suffering.
Empathetics,
people
yes, the sufferers, the sufferers. That's who they are. They will play a role in reminding us never to forget, not to become apathetic, lax, or lazy, because they're just, in tune with the potential doom. We have the free spirits, the poets, the artists, the creators, the beauty makers. The beauty of being a Jew is that we have so much to offer, and we should continue to offer those things. We should continue to create and to break boundaries and limits and change the world for the good in any which way that we are capable of. If you could create something and add something beautiful or helpful to the world at large, by all means, that is excellent for Jews, always. And then you have your PR people. And that's people like you and I. And that's the people who, we make the content and we push it out there and we put it on social media platforms. And we put it on YouTube and we, the public relations, the people who don't mind being the faces of Jews, the ones on TV, the ones that are out with the microphones in front of their faces. 12 tribes, the looking ones, 12 tribes, 12 paths, all necessary to reach one destination.
Which is?
An anti-Semitic free era.
No, that's a byproduct, which is
you want me to say it?
Which is a state of love between us. We want to reach love between us, Chanale. We just want to love each other, because in that feeling, the way you feel towards your child, if you could feel it towards every child, can you imagine if every person in the world would feel that? What would blow our minds? We would stop feeling.
You are a lover. You are a lover. My father, on the other hand, he's an introvert. He's thinking, I don't want to hang out with anyone.
No, I hate people.
I hate people.
No, I hate people. Seth will tell you. But I'm a terrible person. But I found out that there is no other way. And the moment my son was born, I felt it. I felt that if nature can give me that feeling towards this one child, meaning nature can give me this feeling towards everyone if I really want it. I make efforts to get it. I really demand it.
That's how you explain the Rebbe, basically. He had to have that kind of love towards humanity in order to be driven like that, to get up and work like that every day.
Oh, yeah.
So.
I mean,
Exactly.
Lubavitcher Rebbe alone is a character worth exploring. I mean, if everyone wants to get inspired, by all means, go in that direction. You will, your mind will expand. I mean, wow.
No, totally. I mean, like I said, we among all the quotes that we collected a lot of quotes from him, where he talks about this love, the need for uniting, the need for spreading it, the demand of the nations of the world from us. All those things, he's saying all those things. Mm-hmm. So it just, again, it's that inner meaning. Be a good Jew doesn't mean go and pray 3 times a day, check box all your mitzvahs and you're done. No, love each other truthfully.
And hafatzah, he was big with.
Yeah, and spread that.
Yeah.
So, okay, I think, we've got a plan. Whoever listened can start putting into action. Before we close, I would love Chanale to read, with her, musical voice, read that quote.
And do it close to the mic, because when you got close to the mic,
quote?
Yeah. I put in the chat a quote from Yehuda Ashlag Baal HaSulam. This is a quote from a small book that's called Shamati, I Heard, which his son and his successor wrote. He heard, he gave those little talks and on different occasions. So he wrote that. So read that, because it's for Purim and it's next big holiday coming up. And we have Tu B'Shvat, but
can I read it to myself real quick? Hold on.
Yeah, read for yourself. I'll just kind of do the wrap up. So we'll read the quote. We're really, really happy, honored that we had Chanale on our show. I think it was one of the more focused talks we've had, Seth, right? I mean,
feisty and focused.
Yeah, I felt like we really were. I mean, this is the first person who came to the show with a plan. I love it. It's like, there's a plan. Finally, let's pull the Jews together, rekindle that spirit, give them a role. You do this, you do that. You should run that ship that takes us on the next flood.
I have my own Sephardi husband and 4 kids here to run.
Oh, good, very good.
You guys could do the rest.
Good. So this is again. So this is what we think the Jew function is all about: is taking ownership of that spirit, bringing it to ourselves, and then to the rest of the world. And we'll end with a quote. Obviously, follow us, like us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere.
Chanale, where are they going to find you?
Yeah, where are they going to find you?
Right here in my studio in Beit Shemesh.
The Weekly Squeeze.
The Weekly Squeeze, right
here.
Yeah,
you'll find all the descriptions in the descriptions. And we'll close out with this beautiful quote. Chanale, go ahead.
I even have my own mug.
Oh, nice. That's
All right.
That's Seth. You see, we're behind.
There is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among peoples. Haman said that in his view, we will succeed in destroying the Jews because they are separated from one another. Hence, our force against them will certainly prevail, as it causes separation between man and God. And the Creator will not help them anyway, since they were separated from him. This is why Mordechai went to correct that flaw, as it is explained in the verse. The Jews gathered to gather themselves together and to stand for their life. This means that they had saved themselves by uniting.
I feel warm.
I wish we could hug you.
No. Like I said, I'm married to a Sephardi. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. We'll stay in touch, of course, and be
Happy
ready
to come on anytime.
Yes, and be ready for that big panel that we'll throw together.
What is that?
I don't know, but
All right, I'm in.
All the Jews.
I'm always ready for a party.
All those different qualities of Jews. We want to bring them all
I'm always
together.
ready for a party. Nice to meet you guys.
Thank you. This is the
Hanukkah
True Function. Chag Sameach. We'll see you next week.